So tonight I want to tell you a story about Chelm. And if you've never heard of Chelm, it is a village in Poland. It is a real village, or was a real village, but the stories we tell are maybe more mythical. The stories that are told about Chelm are told about people who some people might call fools. But I think that you will see they do a lot of thinking. It might not be thinking that leads to the right end, but they are very careful thinkers. This particular story about Chelm starts with a snowstorm. But before I can tell you about the storm, I need to tell you about an important job in Chelm, the shulklapper. Raise your hand first if you know what a newspaper is. Good. Okay, raise your hand if you know what the job of a paper boy or paper girl was. Okay, the fewer hands. Not so long ago, there were boys and girls whose job it was to walk or bike around the neighborhood every morning to deliver the newspaper to every house. It was a very important job and required kids to be super responsible. In Chelm, they didn't have paper boys or paper girls, but they had a job that was just as important and a little bit similar, the shulklapper. Shulklapper means temple knocker, and it was that child's job to go around the town every morning to knock on people's doors with a wooden mallet to wake them up and tell them it is time to go to synagogue to pray. At the time of our story, the shulklapper in Chelm was named Razel. And on the morning our story begins, it had just snowed. Deep, powdery snow, like Chelm rarely saw. Does that sound familiar? Chelm looked beautiful, covered in fluffy layers of pure white snow. Until Razel did her job that morning. She tromped from house to house, banging on the doors, and everywhere she went, her boots turned the white drifts of snow to brown piles of slushy ice. And when the people left their houses, they were so disappointed to see that everything wasn't covered in pure white. And they blamed Razel. So one person suggested that Razel needed to do her job better by not putting her feet on the ground. That would work. So they told her, maybe you can fly from house to house. But the mayor of Chelm knew that Razel couldn't fly by herself. So the mayor called a meeting of the town to come up with a way for Razel to do her job without her feet touching the ground. And after a week, they had come up with a solution. So the next time it snowed, 4 strong grown-ups picked up a big wooden table and met Razel at her door. They had her climb onto the table, and they carried the table around the town to each house so that Razel could knock with her mallet on the door and wake people up. They were successful in that Razel never touched the snow with her boots. But you might have already guessed the plan didn't work that well because the snow still got dirty because now there were 4 adults with their boots on the snow. So the mayor called another meeting, and this time Razel had a suggestion. She told them, I really like thinking about the weather, and I can tell when it's going to snow. So what if I call people to pray before it starts snowing? So that way, we will have finished our morning prayers before the snow starts. And then you'll go back to your houses, and the snow can stay beautiful and white on the ground. The whole town clapped. It was brilliant. So that's what happens in Chelm. If Razel thinks it's going to snow, she runs around and knocks on the doors with her mallet and gets people together to say the morning prayers. It doesn't matter if it's dinner time. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of the night. If Razel thinks that the storm might last more than one day, she might tell them to say the morning prayers more than once in a row to build up their morning prayers so then they can stay in their houses longer with more clean white snow. Now, some people make fun of Chelm And they say it's silly to say morning prayers at night or to say them 2 or 3 times in a row. But I'm wondering if Charlotte could have learned something from Chelm. Next time we think there's going to be a historic snow coming, maybe we could have Shabbat services on a Tuesday. Or maybe we could have religious school 2 or 3 times in a row, all on one Sunday. Doesn't that sound fun? Just in case we have to cancel school the next week. It would make our lives easier. So something to consider. Shabbat Shalom.